A brief look on what TUI is about. We're the world's #1 tourism company, 67,000 employees worldwide. We own 16 cruise ships and we have our own 153 airlines in 6 different European countries. So we also consider ourselves to be a truly European company. We have 1,600 travel shops all over Europe. We own our own hotels and more than 20 million customers from 31 source markets travel to 180 different countries with us. Next slide, please. To give you a few figures on the contribution of tourism to the EU GDP. Overall, it amounts to 1,500 trillion euros. And if you look at these, if you look at this graph, you can see that the top 5 destinations for UK residents are France, Italy, Spain, Greece, and Portugal. And in 4 of these 5 destinations, the tourism contribution to GDP is over 10%. In the case of Greece, it's 18.6%. So I think this is these are figures that need to sink in if you look at the overall picture here. Next slide, please. What could be the potential? We have to talk potential here because we obviously don't know. We don't have all the facts. So to a certain extent, we have to speculate. But we have commissioned a study, and it has shown us some potential effects of Brexit on tourism in the EU 27. So they've calculated 21 billion euros potential loss just in tourism spending if the Brexit would materialize. And if you break that down on some of the most popular tourist destinations, you would see that Malta, for example, would face a loss of 2.4% of their GDP just by the loss of tourism spending that would be happening through a Brexit. Spain still 0.5% of the GDP. So I think these are quite considerable numbers. On the left side of the slide, you can see again some of the benefits that tourism has brought to the EU. We see that 10% of GDP are contributed through tourism in the EU, which is 11.6% of employment. That's 26.5 million jobs in the European Union, and roughly 500 million international tourists per year come into the EU. So that's 40% of all international arrivals worldwide. Next slide, please. So to give you a further idea on how that relates to Brexit and to the UK passenger flows, the top 5 touristic destinations from the UK are, as we see here in this slide, France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Greece. And the amount of tourists that are going from the UK to those countries per year are quite remarkable. So 13.5 million passengers every year, or that's from 2016. So in 2016, 13.5 million passengers from the UK to Spain. And one remark on the Greek number here, so 2.5 million, that's 10% of all international arrivals in Greece. So I think that's also quite remarkable. 10% of all international arrivals in Greece in 2016 came from the UK. Some of these figures on the right-hand side of the slide have been mentioned before, so I'm not going to dwell too long on them, just so that you see that this is really a European issue, not just a UK issue. And for us, it's important to look at both sides. We have a carrier, Thomson Airways, in the UK, and we have 5 airlines in the European Union, 27. So we have to look at both sides. So 27 UK carriers currently transport or operate 1 million flights into the EU, and 142 EU carriers operate almost the same amount of flights into the UK. So I think one can see that there is a mutual interest here. Brexit could result in reduced air service agreements. We've heard that before. Air service agreements predating the current European Common Aviation Area. They might be insufficient. We will see a reduction of round trips for sure. Less choice, less competition could be a potential effect. And obviously, what I've showed you before, a fall in tourism spending could or will most certainly happen under the scenario of a hard Brexit. So the overall impact on GDP for the European Union, including the UK, would then be minus 210 billion euros, according to that study. It's a rather extreme scenario where you look at the air traffic coming to a stop and only certain portions of traffic would be substituted by other means of transport like ferries, trains or buses. But nonetheless, it's an extreme scenario, but it gives you an idea, a flavor of the figures and of what's at stake when we talk about the Brexit and tourism. Next slide. So just some final key messages from our side. We believe that the European Common Aviation Area should be preserved because of the fact that the pre-1992, so before the aviation liberalization, the air service agreements before 1992 provide an insufficient basis for the future. EASA, we've heard about that. We agree that it's a mutual interest to keep the UK in there. Safety first, we believe, is essential. And last but not least, something we've heard as well, legal and planning security for the holiday season. We need to have that as early as possible. We sell our holidays 12 to 18 months in advance, so the sooner we have clarity on these issues, the better. Thank you.